after 9 or 10 years, 10 attempts, this was the 10th game, Mayo finally beat Dublin in a game they didn't even play well in, which is absolutely incredible. Well, they played well maybe from 63 minutes on. We'll get into that in part two. But let's just put some context onto this, Aaron. I won't go to you, Ger, first. It might be still a little bit raw for you. 17 attempts, Aaron. We spoke about all this last Thursday. We have replays, we had sendings off, we had missed frees, we had own goals. We had them losing last year's final, pretty easily in the end. And then you're wondering, will they ever be able to beat Dublin? They're 9-2 down, Aaron, in the first half. Their captain is having a nightmare. They're missing the championship's all-time leading scorer, Cillian O'Connor. The best young attacking centre-back in the whole country, Oisin Mullin's not playing. Like any other team would have packed up and got home, Aaron. I'm convinced of it.
There's plenty to feel sorry for themselves in everything that you have mentioned there, but I think from a neutral perspective, it's just something that I really have admired in this Mayo team. I suppose this is a new team, but just in how Mayo have gone about their business this past 10 years or so, absolutely incredible. Say if you throw in who they were missing and the baggage that comes with it, but it was just compounded by Aidan O'Shea's couple of misses in the first half. Tommy Conroy as well had broke through a couple of tackles right to the edge of in front of the goal, kicked the ball wide. You had the Dubs and Hill 16 jeering, and you're just thinking, you know what, this is just going to be another disaster zone for Mayo. For them to have the ability and to have the courage to stick to their principles, to get an energy level out of somewhere, to come back and do what they did is incredible. And I think everyone, obviously bar Ger and the Dubs, we were sitting on the edge of our seats at home, hearts racing, really getting into the game. And it was a Saturday afternoon well spent for us all.
It definitely was. Pádraig Ó Tuama said after the game, we love a battle. We always seem to put ourselves at the bottom of the hill before we go climbing it. And that was it. Colin O'Rourke said at half-time, I went in from the press box and he says, we might as well pack up and go home, or something to that effect. I don't think RTE were probably too happy with him, as thousands tuned out to watch something else, because the game was over, Ger. Like, let's be honest.
No, it was gone. You were sitting back, I think, maybe it was 32 minutes. Dublin were 10-3 up. And I remember chatting to the wife, and it says, I actually hope Mayo kick even a score or two just to make things interesting. Otherwise, Dublin will go into that kind of key possession game that they play. And again, it'll just be a brutal affair for 35 minutes, and we'll be all bored over our heads. But in fairness to Mayo, they were able to get their act together after half time and began to push on and forced Dublin into a lot of uncharacteristic, unforced errors, which obviously changed the game. But it was really a game of two halves. Literally, when you look at the 70 minutes without getting into the extra time.
Yeah, it was all Mayo in extra time. There was only one team going to win it at that stage. Diarmuid O Connor keeping that ball in, Aaron. Have you ever seen anything like that before? And when I was after the game, I was thinking back, Mayo pressed up and Mayo did so well in the second half. Mayo weren't really great in the second half either. Like, it was 63 minutes, they were still 5 behind. It was 3-2 in the second half. This moment of, and I didn't even think it was inspiration at the time, Aaron. I saw him launch himself at that going, geez, isn't he a gallant loser now? Because I didn't see any way come back from Mayo. 5 down in 63 minutes. And that did end up being the inspiration that Mayo needed, because from the very next kick out, Flynn got a point. And finally, the Mayo fans had something to bloody get on board with, because they hadn't really. And even though Mayo were getting a few points in the second half, they were kicking away ball, and they were, the Mayo crowd just were desperate to get in behind their team. And it wasn't until Diarmuid O Connor did that, I don't think, that they properly kind of drove them on.
Yeah, and you're right. It's not actually what he did. Well, obviously it was very important to keep the ball in, but who would have bothered the head going for that? Yeah. Everyone, the way the game was going, you see a miss kick by Henley, it's tailing well wide. You'd nearly throw your eyes to the heaven and go, Jesus, here we go again. Sprints across, gets a foot in it, get a point of it, and like you say, immediately get another score. The game changes in that there then, because
that was the change.
They get a bit of belief. The crowd then start to get behind them. Dublin started to come under a bit more pressure, and then everything changes after that there. But like you say, for him to sprint the whole way across the box, 10 yards outside the box, swing a leg just to keep a ball in play, it was, I don't even know what he was thinking, but it worked. It had the desired effect, and just something like that. It's just so Mayo. Who else would have bothered running across to do that there? It was it was different, but very, very effective.
Yeah, different but pure Mayo, and that's the truth. You could injure yourself doing it. Now, there's no way he meant that assist for Kevin McLaughlin. Like, I mean, he's not that skillful that he can launch himself in the air. He just wanted to keep the ball alive. Like, it's just Mayo through and through. He just didn't want, he just fought on his back, I suppose.
Yeah, and like Diarmuid O Connor and Kevin McLaughlin have been around for a number of years, and they've suffered a fair few defeats. And for me, both lads probably didn't have wonderful games, they grand games, but that particular clip showed that the desire that they still had, that they did want to get over the line, and they did want to beat Dublin. But yeah, it was a will to win, and in fairness, it was again, because McLaughlin for me was quiet, but to take that ball on, it was a lovely finish. And then what happened after that, down from the kick out and everything else, just Mayo really got the momentum from that point.
Yeah, it was more of a never give up, just never ever give up. I saw loads of pictures going around with never give up on it as he's flying through the air, and that was it. And there is moments in a game that can inspire a team, and I think that did inspire. I did inspire the crowd, and it inspired Mayo. Like, I mean, we have to talk about Aidan O'Shea, Aaron. Like, I mean, he had a nightmare, and what a decision by James Horan to take him off. And it's almost like when you're playing that badly, it's almost, he did that almost for Aidan O'Shea's benefit rather than say he's been terrible. He like, nothing went right for him. He had no positive impact on the game at all. Like, he got 3 balls in the first half. He kicked the first one wide when he should have taken it on, when Davy Byrne tripped up. He's not the most accurate player. Then he messed up the mark, hit the post, an easy point. The Hill was jeering him. Now they're jeering your leader and your inspirational player. And then he gets caught in possession. He gives away a hand pass. He just had to be taken off, but not many managers would have done it, Aaron.
Yeah, it was. It's a huge call, because he is obviously the captain, and so much has revolved around him for such a long period of time on that team. But to be fair to James Horan, it had to happen. It was the right call to make. Yes, it's a tough call, but was it the best call to make at that stage? You said there was just nothing was happening for him. If you go right back to the first ball that he gets with Davy Byrne, like, it wasn't until I can't remember where I met him in Dublin at a function or something one night, and the man is a monster. He's as big a man as you're going to come up against in a football field, but he won that ball inside the 14 on Davy Byrne. Like, kicking points isn't his strong point, but going into contact, shrugging a man off, even if he had to went in and fisted it over the bar or tried to bury it in the back of the net, but he didn't look confident. He didn't know whether he wanted to take the mark. He was looking to feed it off to a runner. His last option, the last thing he wanted to do, my reading of his body language, was shoot. And you could tell he didn't kick with confidence and a tail wide at the near post. I would have liked to see him catch the ball, go straight at Davy Byrne, try and create a goal opportunity, a fisted point, anything, then he's in the game. You see the Dubs then got on his back, the supporters got on his back in front of the Hill. The next mark he takes then as well, you could nearly see from his body language, he wasn't that, and I know it's only 14 yards out, but he wasn't that confident in taking the mark. And like you say, the game just ran away from him. But it was the right call to make. It was a huge call to make, but it was the right one. And to be fair to the whole Mayo team again as well, nobody dropped their heads. Nobody started feeling sorry for them, thinking, Jesus, not working out for Aidan, our captain. It's going to be another one of these days. They just got a new lease of life. Not just saying necessarily off the back of that there, but it didn't diminish their team. It didn't set them back in any way at all, which again, you have to give them huge credit for.
Yeah, and I suppose it was James Carr came on for him and he kicked as bad a wides as Aidan O'Shea did. Like, I mean, it's not like that was the inspired substitution, because Carr was terribly wasteful. But Aidan O'Shea, like, I mean, it didn't go right for him. Do you think, man, 49 minutes he's taken off?
So, in terms of what Aidan is good at, having obviously played against him and watched him a fair few times, he's very good playing off instinct. And like Aaron described, when there's players around him and he's able to shrug guys off and create overlaps for himself and bring other guys into the game. What happens with a lot of guys when they're in an unfamiliar position and they have time to think about it, that they overthink and something happens between the brain and the foot and the ball doesn't go where you want it to go. And that's why I would admire free takers or goal kickers in rugby, because the game stops and you have to, even Henley at the end, to kick that score then at the end. You have to be very, very mentally strong to be able to do that, and it is a skill set you got to practice. Thinking of James Horan, you're looking at the risk benefit analysis. The risk is, if I leave him on, he's having a stinker. To protect him, like you say, from himself. But then another risk is, if you take off the leader psychologically, it's
a lift for the opposition.
It's a lift for the opposition. So I'm sure he weighed up all those things in his head, but he got it right. He had a poor day, O'Shea. For me,
he had a nightmare. And he moved him out to midfield as well. He tried to get him into the game and he just couldn't. He started making mistakes when he went out around the midfield. It's just like his brain had scrambled, I think, especially after the second one that hit the post, the mark. That was kind of it. It was interesting, he brought Conor Loftus back on before he brought back on Aidan O'Shea, so he was going back, Aaron, into his, who can I bring back on that's already played, and Loftus came back on before Aidan. Aidan only came on for the last kind of minute maybe to defend those free kicks.
Yeah, in fairness, putting Conor Loftus back on at that time, he's very mobile, a good passer of the ball inside, and I suppose to bring on Aidan, it was the running game in the second half that they really got going again, the energy and the drive from all over the field, and I just don't think James fancied Aidan, in a foot race if he had to put him out round the middle of the field with the Dublin players. So I would say that's why Loftus went back on ahead of him.
He was actually, sorry to cut you off, he was actually very unlucky at the start of the second half. That ball by Paddy Durkin, that didn't look over the line to me. Now, Aidan wasn't going for goals there either. He was heading off away from goals even when he caught it. Did that look over the line to you? I thought he'd saved that.
I thought he had. I thought he just had got it flicked back in before he had stepped out over the end line. But to be honest with you, it just looked like it was just compounding things that were going wrong for the man on the day. But he's been there long enough. He's experienced enough. He obviously has a good relationship with James, and there's an awful lot of trust there. He is the captain of that team. There's nobody going to be as motivated or as driven or as focused, or shouldn't be anybody as driven or as focused as him over the next month, in terms of what lays ahead for him personally, and what a big performance from him can help lead them to.
Yeah, so we have to talk about John Small's shoulder on Owen McLaughlin. Obviously, we all know Owen's after he suffered a broken jaw and he's in surgery and all that. And geez, that's horrific. And your thoughts go out to Owen for the hit. Now, when we start talking about this, there's a lot of stuff going around. We'll all agree this was not an elbow. There's too many pictures going around. When John Small hit him with his elbow tucked in down by his ribs, he hit him. McLaughlin fell down and his elbow came up after. And there's some pictures doing the rounds that are making out that elbow was up there before the hit, and it's a disgrace. It's a disgrace on John Small and his reputation as a footballer. Now, let's talk about the actual hit. Ger, as a kind of a man who might like to, throw out a hit or two, I've received hits or two. John Small went in to hurt Owen McLaughlin. He went in to rattle him, and if Owen McLaughlin had to go leave the field because of that, I've no doubt John Small would be happy with that outcome. That's what he went to do. The pass from Hessian had a little bit too much hang time on it, and Small went in to nail him. There is no way he went to break his jaw. I would not accept that in any way. Yeah. But the fact of the matter is, Small didn't time it right. It was slightly on the inside of his shoulder, caught his jaw, right? McLaughlin fell down, knocked out. The referee played it on. So number one, there's three things to discuss here. Was the hit... Did it look bad in real time? The replay, and should the ref have stopped it?
So I think you've said everything you've said there. I fully agree with you, Wooly, and not to be adding to it, but just as a dub, and knowing John, I think maybe scummy is not the right word to use, but some of the still shots going around and being used by reputable newspaper journalists and whatnot of him showing the elbow up, I think it's disgraceful. When you hit a guy's shoulder, it's just natural momentum that the arm comes through, and that's just the way. That's just physics, the way the body moves. Did John Small go in to absolutely nail him and leave a bit on him? Absolutely. Did he want to break a guy's jaw? Absolutely not. But when you're going in to hit a guy like that, you are looking to cause a bit of decent pain that put your man off his game or potentially out of the game, but without causing serious injury. I think it was very unfortunate. For me in real time, I thought it was a great hit. For me in real time, over the course of the game, and I'm seeing Connor Lane up close with UCD and Carlo, I think he's a poor ref. I think he's like a, you know, an intermediate junior footballer playing senior football. He's not good enough if you ask me.
Right.
And he should have stopped the game. But I think it was very unlucky for Owen McLaughlin. But now if the shoe was on the other foot, a Mayo fella would love to nail a Dub guy in the same way without wanting to cause that sort of damage, like, you know.
Yeah.
But that's the nature of the sport again. Risk reward. You're going in to play a physical game. You know that there is a chance over the course of your career you're going to take some sort of serious hit. And with John's one, he went in legitimately and fairly, but the time and just slightly off, or the angle's just slightly off. But you're talking about half an inch. But as a referee, all I would say to Connor Lane is that it was probably difficult because the thing happened so quickly. Like, we had to see replays from different angles to actually, you know, break it down, and to be using the bloody digital pen to look at this and that. But that's not how sport works, like, you know.
No, well, that's the thing, Aaron. So I'm like, real time, I'm on the fence whether I thought it was I thought, you know, fair, bit reckless. You know, was it a free? Was it a red card? I would said in real time, I probably wouldn't give him a red card. On the replay, I would give a red card. We'll probably all be in agreement that Lane should definitely, whether it was a free or a red card, should have stopped the play the minute McLaughlin fell uncontrollably down to the ground. What's your take on it?
Yeah, so like, I don't disagree with anything that is said there. Like, you are allowed, let's be clear, like, you're allowed to go and hit hard, shoulder to shoulder, and 100% that's what John Small planned to do. Hit direct contact, shoulder to shoulder. It just didn't work out like that. It was slightly mistimed. McLaughlin turns slightly in them that he's more frontal on. It was a suicide pass. Like, as soon as the ball was passed, because on TV you could see the wide angle, I was sitting at home going, geez, he's going to get rode off here. Yeah. You could see that it was going to happen. But he did connect clearly with the jaw. And the only thing I'll give Connor Lane, I'll give him a bit of a bye-ball, is that he was on the far side of it. So he couldn't see that it hit him on the jaw. But for me, what it is completely out of order is Owen McLaughlin was knocked clean out. On TV, you could see he falls face first on the ground. Under no circumstances should play have went on there. There's not a sport in the world that would have let that game run on there. Like, it was scandalous that he let that play go on. Everyone knew that man's badly hurt. Like, he was completely out. He didn't even get his hands down in front of him. His face bounces off the ground and he lets play go on. Like, is he for real? You can't do that there. Like, he has a duty of care to the players on that field. And what he let go on there was scandalous. And there's no excusing that whatsoever. Even if you're standing close and it's a fair hit, you'll hear the wind leaving a man. If it's shoulder to shoulder and you're winded and nearly your ribs are overlapping. But that wasn't a fair hit. That man was knocked out cold and took a severe blow to the head, and player should never have went on. Now, for me, John Small, yes, tries to hit him as hard as he can fairly. It doesn't come off, but it is a straight red card. There's no doubt about it whatsoever. But for me, Connor Lane, how he let, like, there was no free, there was no red card, and Ryan Pascal should have really went in and sucked the ball in the back of the net, and game's over completely. And it's another poor me story for Mayo again. But so much happened in that should have been rectified and wasn't at that time.
It was Mick Fitzsimons hit Lee Keegan in last year's final, a similar one. You know these balls, lads, that have too much hang time, and it crosses your mind. Yeah. Like, it crosses your mind to say, when I catch this, I could be met. Now, if that was any other Dublin defender, they might not have rattled McLaughlin. John Small's game is that he likes to rattle lads. Yeah. And he rattled Conall Keaney in the county final last year. Remember that picture where the two of them are almost like they're both in a car accident? That's his game. Yeah. I don't see a problem with that. Like, I mean, that's just the way the game has always been. And when you catch those suicide balls, you know you're going to be open. But windy players pull out of them, and if brave players go for them, accepting the fact that I could get completely wrote off here. Like, I've had my spleen ruptured by a shoulder that went in under my arm. I went in for a throw ball when I was in a county final one year, and a Lacey lad, centre forward or centre back, a 35-year-old man, I was 18, we both went in for the same ball. He straight shoulder into the face, cracked my back tooth. I don't look at any of those lads as out they're contacts that happen in a game.
Yeah.
They're not scumbags.
Yeah.
That's the game of football. It's a
Yeah.
contact game. And my heart goes out to McLaughlin, but John Small went in to rattle him and he got it wrong. He didn't mean to break his jaw. He meant to hit him flush on. Technically, John Small was reckless because it's very hard to time them, Ger, as he's turning.
Yeah.
Like you don't have much of a target. Do you know?
Yeah.
Because he's going to be hitting him on the outside of that shoulder.
Yeah.
And, you would almost say to John Small, if you're the manager, if you keep doing that, John, you're going to be sent off. You might try to tone that down a little bit in him. But, like, it's part of the game.
It's part of the game, and to remove it from the game, I think would be disastrous. It could become a non-contact sport. Like the timing of a shoulder like that, we don't see it as often in Gaelic games. James McCarthy is another guy who's able to do it well. And you mentioned Michael Fitzsimons as well, but like, would you, because one guy unfortunately has had an horrific injury, do you all of a sudden change the rules because of that? But like, people want to see that contact. Obviously you want to see it timed correctly, and the guy who was being hit is in a position to take the hit and defend himself. But as the aggressor and the defender trying to leave a mark on a guy fairly and hardly, it's the game is so fast, and inter-county football is so fast that to always get it exactly right it just doesn't always happen,
Yeah, no, that's it. So we'll move off that one now, and wish Owen the very best in his recovery. The Dublin indiscipline in general, Aaron, James McCarthy elbow and Diarmuid O Connor completely uncalled for. James McCarthy, the first time I ever saw him lose his mind, and what he did for the last free at the end was just nothing short of incredible. This was Dublin's last roll of the dice, and James McCarthy, is it Lee Keegan, he went in and just jumped on him. He'd lost his mind. His brain had scrambled, and I've never seen it before for such a disciplined player to do two indisciplined things like that. Aaron, he was dispossessed by Ryan O'Donoghue towards the end. I think that was for the Kevin McLaughlin for a free for Kevin McLaughlin, which was completely out of character. But I suppose the worst one was jumping on Lee Keegan that time when it was Dublin's last kick of the game and gave a free out.
Yeah, like, it's just so uncharacteristic for James. But he probably, and I suppose hindsight's a wonderful thing, but it just looked like there was a bit of frustration in Dublin all season.
Yeah.
The same drive, desire, hunger, whatever you want to call it, just didn't seem to be there. We all kept thinking, give them a bigger challenge, and it's just going to come. But ultimately, whenever it really come to it the other day, they were flat. They were flat all over the field. Whenever it become a battle, whenever they've been at their best and at their most composed to see out wins, it wasn't there. And I suppose just what happened, James laid on, he said, very lucky to get away with the Diarmuid O Connor one. I don't think it was a real serious pull back at the elbow, but it was a bit of frustration in him. You could see it was a bit of frustration. The last one then, they say, whenever you're chasing the game, it's, albeit maybe the game was up at that stage, but to just run in, sort of jump up, grab him by the neck, slam him to the ground. It just was. You could see at that stage that his head was completely gone, and the game was gone from them.
Yeah, and that didn't happen during the 70 minutes. Like, that happened, like Aaron said, over the course of the season. That there was obviously a lot of frustrated players.
The captaincy was taken off James McCarthy. Do you think that might have pissed him off a little bit?
Well,
for a club man of Desi's.
I actually didn't even know.
Well, maybe the captaincy was.
It went to Johnny Cooper then.
But maybe it wasn't taken off him. Maybe he was just he was captain at the start of the year, but Johnny Cooper wasn't around.
Yeah, so I don't. We don't know the answers, obviously.
No.
But like, clarity, players need clarity, and where there's a lack of clarity and there's too many whispers, all sorts of rumours can grow within the group. And maybe management sometimes at the outset needs to be very clear that, look, James is going to captain us for the next few games. Johnny's vice captain. When Johnny's back and Stephen's still away, Johnny's going to be captain. I don't know what happened, but you do need clarity there. But a lot of the stuff that happened, the off the ball stuff that obviously happened was born out of huge frustration for a lot of Dublin fellas.
You never see that though, don't you?
No, you rarely see it. No, but Diarmuid O Connor, gas man, obviously a talented player, but like he's a devil for going down for me, rolling around on the ground.
No, he does go down easily, but that was into the neck. To be fair to him, now.
Yeah, but sure, James. I know it was. He did what he did, James. Yeah, I'm not.
I would go down if I got an elbow in the neck. Would you not?
I wouldn't. No.
No,
It's not in my nature. But I can understand why a forward would. But Dermot's brother Killian is a great forward because he's an arky fecker, and he's great at throwing out his own elbows as well, which is fine. I've said that before. But the brother Diarmuid, geez, he frustrates me sometimes over the years.
Yeah, no, he does go down easily. I will accept that, but I don't think on this. I don't think on this game. Philly came on, of course, Aaron, and started pinching lads, and of course there was a big melee then, and Aidan O'Shea ran in on the field, and that needs to be called out as well because you can't be doing that. And he was in on the field, getting involved with Philly, and it was all getting very messy at that stage.
To be honest with you, the whole thing had lost the plot at that stage. Like, I couldn't believe what I was seeing because I didn't hear the whistle blown, and I don't even believe the whistle was blown. I don't know whether full time was up or not, but fair to Connolly, he had to just stop it at that stage because it was chaos. Like, but what was Aidan O'Shea doing, running out into the middle of the field after being that rank, during the game where he had a stinker? Like, his head was gone and he was just sitting in the stand. Maybe he was just getting caught up in the whole emotion where there's the big comeback, the draw and level, like. But I'd say he found himself in the middle of that field and he was thinking, what am I after doing? Like, what am I out here for?
To be fair to him, he didn't run from the stand. He was down warming up the whole. Whenever he got taken off, he was warming up. He would have been. He just ran in. He obviously got a rush of blood.
That's fair enough. But like, on no circumstances do you run onto the field whenever you're off as a sub in that situation. Like, it's certainly not going to sort things out. Like, it's just going to make things worse. And again, it was only a bit of handbags, bit of pushing and shoving, the usual rip train to see who can rip whose jersey here. But it wasn't helpful to the situation in terms of, it could have lost focus again. But there wasn't much made of it. But it was very, very surprising to see someone of his stature and experience and someone who was a sub coming running back onto the field to get involved. It could have led to something much worse, where you could have a few dubs then start following them and then it just gets out of control altogether.
Yeah, to be fair, Aidan O'Shea is getting a free pass on this, whereas if that was Philly McMahon with a bib on the sideline and he ran into it, that reaction would have been a lot worse, I'm sure.
And it was something that was missed on the Sunday game last night, where it was only all the Dublin stuff was highlighted, and rightly so, but you have to bring some sort of balance to it. So a guy running on from the sideline with a bib on, warrants something, probably a yellow card within the game and stealth, but you can't be just running on.
Yeah, no, we definitely agree with that. One other two more referee decisions before we move into the match. Con foul on Keegan was a yellow, possible black. Davy Byrne got he pulled McLaughlin's jersey. You see, they look like blacks because McLaughlin fell, but it's not technically a black card. It's a yellow card for a pull of the jersey. A lot of the players now are falling, and rightly so. If you're being fouled, make sure the ref gives you the free. Doesn't make them black cards. The one that actually one black card was given was a terribly harsh black card. Pascal was actually running towards the player that he was. I think it was a John Small. He was passing it to. What was he meant to do there, Aaron? He's running that way.
Yeah, we've spoken about this a couple weeks ago on the show, and I can't remember which one. He's not a genie. He can't disappear. Where's he to go? Now, you can see he does make a wee bit of eye contact where he sort of knows what he's going to do. It was the Throne game, Kieran McGeary. That's the one we spoke about. But what can he do? He can't get out of the way completely. Like, his momentum was taking him that way anyway. He had to jump to make sure he could pass the man that was running, or you have to do an exaggerated halt of the brakes, So yeah, that was a very, very harsh black card. The other one, I suppose, in real time, whenever you've seen Davy Byrne pulling back Kevin McLaughlin, you're thinking that's a black card. But whenever you slow it down, it's not a deliberate. He pulls his jersey all right, but you don't fall to the ground because somebody pulls your jersey. Kevin McLaughlin knew what he was doing. He was trying to go down. He got the free, which was fine. But for me, whenever you watch the replay back, no, not a black card. He didn't need to fall to the ground. It wasn't a deliberate pull down. It was a deliberate pull back, okay, but not a deliberate drag to the ground.
There was a lovely moment just to finish up on is when Pascal had popped it to John Small. you remember John Small kept going and Lee Keegan came across and burst him with a shoulder onto the ground?
Yeah.
And Lee Keegan landed on top of him. It was a little bit of wrestling. Then the two of them just stood up,
Smiling.
looked at each other and started laughing. And the two of them didn't let on. They just started smiling at each other like two hardy bits of stuff now.
Yeah.
And they started smiling. And the minute they walked away from each other, they both went down holding their head, but they didn't want to let on. They were hurt. You know what I mean? I thought that was just a class kind of moment between two, you know, really, really tough bits of stuff.
Yeah, and it's great to see that. And I've met Lee on occasion, and he's just a wonderfully level-headed, humble guy, and whatever he gets from this season, he deserves. And two lads who have been known, and Keegan for being comfortable with the rough and tumble over the years. Probably don't see it as much because he's in the full back line this season, but just two lads with a healthy respect for one another and appreciating what the other guy has done. You know?
Healthy respect for a
Healthy
good shoulder.
respect.
So Small was on the receiving end of that one. Right, we'll leave it there, boys, and we'll come back and we'll chat about the match. All right, so Mayo 17, Dublin 14. That's after extra time. It was only 13 all at the end of full time, like 13 all, you know, like neither team sparked in the forwards at all. Let's start at the start. Like, I mean, there was a few changes on the Mayo team. Conor Loftus went wing forward. Tommy Conroy came out to the half forward line. Aidan O'Shea and Ryan O'Donoghue were left in a two-man full forward line. And on the Dublin side, you had Kieran Kilkenny and Con and Dean Rock in the full forward line. Surprisingly, Cormac Costello went out and Paddy Durkin, which I didn't see coming at all. And you had a situation where Lee Keegan was picking up Kilkenny at the start and O'Hora was picking up Con, and after about 50 minutes they changed those two because Dublin had started pretty well. And it ended up that change was a brilliant change because, you know, both of them did so well under respective markers. But I suppose we start with the Dublin start, Aaron. And like, I mean, it wasn't a situation where you know, Dublin were lethargic here at the start. Dublin started really well and they were able to turn Mayo over. They got a couple of good points with, you know, I remember a Paddy Small pass into Conor Callaghan, a lay off to Kilkenny, a point off the left. They got 1 or 2 points out of being patient. You know, like there was variety to their attacks. They were 4-0 up or 5-6-2 up. And you're looking at Dublin are playing fairly well here. Yeah,
you were. And if you think of Dean Rock, always comes in the loop in on the right foot, but he actually come from full forward, sweeping out towards the Cusack, kicked one off his left foot, which was a super score. You had a bit of link play between Paddy and John Small as well, where they did a 1-2 and he just wheeled back out, gave himself a wee bit more space under the Hogan, kicked a good one. So they were chipping away nicely and they were getting like simple scores, creating good opportunities. To be fair, I understood the analysis at halftime as well, because of what the actual scoreline was. But just for me, it was a wee bit closer. It was whatever it was. Like you had the Conroy chance that you said they missed in the first half, and the two Aidan O'Shea ones. Like they were simple opportunities that you just should never be missing in a game like that. There, but for me, at least they were creating those opportunities. You could have been getting in a 10-7 at halftime, and the narrative is completely different. So I had that in the back of my head, but for me, I was thinking like we're going to need 1, maybe 2 goals from Mayo to get them back into this game, which didn't at all look like it was going to happen. And then obviously the way Dublin can see out games and keep possession and that there, that's why I thought, right, I just can't see Mayo coming into this game. But they did create a few simple chances in the first half that they should have been closer to Dublin than what they were, because Dublin weren't really going after them in terms of trying to rip them open and create goal chances. And that's where I felt whenever Dublin were on top, they didn't look to kill the game off, which the great Dublin teams from a couple of years ago, similar to what the great Kilkenny hurling team would have been, they would have went for the jugular whenever they were on top and finished the game off. And for me, they just left Mayo in it enough to give them a wee bit of hope.
That was it. And like, I mean, James Horan referenced that as well. You've the 2 Aidan O'Shea ones now. They're 2 gimmies, you know, so that's 10-6. You know, you've maybe Ryan O'Donoghue, Tommy Conroy, one of the 2 of them, and you're at 10-7. So the problem was Mayo were missing them.
Yeah.
And it wasn't just so much that Dublin were scintillating and so much better than them in general play, is that Mayo weren't at the races up on the scoreboard. And it's not so much Dublin were unbelievable, more that, Jesus, you know, this is too easy for Dublin. You know, because Mayo can't get the scores.
Yeah, 10-6, 10-7 probably would have been more reflective of how the first half went. Mayo, when you again, what they're really good at is for me is running hard and running in numbers. And now they did kick a few long balls into Aidan O'Shea.
Only 3.
And he won. Well, he kicked 3 and
he won 2 and one went over his head.
And, Conor Collin was back there, flick one back as well. So that was obviously a ploy that they were looking just to probably mix things up, and a couple of positional changes that you outlined at the start to keep the Dublin defenders on their toes. But by the end of the match, they ended up going back into their more natural positions, and that's what made a difference. No, for me, the frustrating thing as a Dub was that keep ball boring game plan that Dublin went into. Maybe that's something you do in the last 5 or 6 minutes if a team is putting a big press on you and you have a few points up. But when there's only 25, 30 minutes gone in a match, you got to keep probing, you got to keep asking questions of the opposition, and you got to keep the scoreboard ticking over, because all you're doing is giving the other team oxygen and keeping them in the game. And in fairness, we know so much about Mayo. They're quite a resilient group, and they never go away. They go down fighting and winning in this case. So I was disappointed from a Dublin point of view that they weren't further ahead or didn't look to create more chances when they got that bit of a lead, that they kind of took the foot off the gas a bit.
Yeah, did no goal chances other than Basquel's, and that should never have been a chance, because James McCarthy maybe with a half chance. But I was trying to look at this, and I remember tweeting after the match, Aaron, and maybe you see the last 15 minutes of the second half, and then you see the extra time, and you think that Mayo were doing this the whole way through the second half. Mayo weren't great in the second half up until 63 minutes. The reality was the first 10 minutes of the second half they scored a point. The game had turned into a desperately boring spectacle at that stage. Dublin messing around with it, and Mayo not much better. A lot of kicking the ball away. And then they got 2 points before the water break. So now you're looking at a situation where it is 10-7. But then Dublin come out after water break and get 2 points. Now, even when you look at Mayo won that first before the water break 3-0, Dean Rock kicked the wide he wouldn't usually kick. Conor Callaghan hit the post with a fisted effort. That was even Stevens really on the balance of play at the start of the second half. There was not much change, only Dublin were wasteful. And again, Dublin come out after the second water break, score 2 points. There's 5 in it then, up until the 63rd minute. And Mayo weren't chasing them down at that stage. Mayo were kicking a lot of ball away. It was a scrappy game. It wasn't a good spectacle at all.
And a few good passages of play, the two of them in particular, ended up with James Carr making the perfect run out from full forward, turning on his right foot, kicking it wide at the near post, and you could just hear the groans coming, from the Mayo support. He'd done everything right, bar obviously the finish. So yeah, you're spot on. It's not as if they were shooting the lights out for the duration of the whole second half, and Dublin were under severe pressure. They were doing the right things again, but their shot execution was letting them down. And you say there was a few times where it was fist pass, should have gone to a man's chest, went to his ankle, skids away from them. Basic errors that were very frustrating. But to be fair then, once they sensed a bit of blood, and for me, one of the key turning points was Lee Keegan's point, because of who it was. Because it was him, and he was carrying the fight again, because we've seen him so many times going up and scoring goals in those All-Ireland finals. But for me, I just felt, right, here's the main man stepping up now. He is going to carry the fight. And I just thought the whole Mayo support really got off their feet at that stage, and they could sense what was coming. But all day, he obviously defensively, he was outstanding, and his link play getting the ball out of defence, but he always seemed to just get the middle of the field, and he was happy enough just to let it go on. The older Lee Keegan that we would expect bombing up to the far 21, it wasn't there. But I think he just said, right, enough's enough. I need to go here, and we need to get a score. And to be fair to him, it was an unbelievable kick off his right foot.
It was. That came from a Niall Scully pass, the one I've never really seen before, where he's nearly in corner forward and drives it back out the field to Mick Fitzsimons, who was being marked. Brain dead stuff. And Niall Scully is almost encapsulates everything that's wrong with Dublin. Yeah. He's gone into safety mode. He got the ball right half back position one time, soloed the whole way across the field, and kicked it back to Hill 16 to the corner back. What is he doing? What is going on with these lads? We'll just stick with Mayo and the spark for a second. We'll get on to Dublin in a minute, because they drive you demented looking at them. I'll take your Lee Keegan point, Aaron, and that was a big moment in the game, and the crowd got into it. But Dublin scored the next 2 points to put 5 in it again. Now let's get back to the And in that time of Mayo not sparking, you're right, Aaron. Carr missed a terrible one. McLaughlin got a brilliant turnover. The crowd cheered it, ran up, give it to Carr. Carr kicks it wide. You're like, jeez. Then another ball kicked to Tommy Conroy, who runs out over the sideline with it. Then, Durkin kicked it away to the sweeper from a really good position. Mayo were not sparking at all. And then you get to Diarmuid O Connor, right? This is where the spark came. I'm telling you, this is where the spark came. He did that. McLaughlin got the point. Flynn got one. 3 in it. Now Mayo chased them down like a pack of wolves. Now Dublin couldn't get out of their full back line. They couldn't get past the half back line. 63 minutes on, Mayo turned into this manic chasing down team, and Dublin, at that stage, Dublin just pretty much threw in the towel.
There was a great shoulder, and I had to watch it back a few times to see who it was, but it was Ryan O'Donoghue hit Sean McMahon had come on and hit him a shoulder and caught him lovely, and McMahon had to go off, but Mayo won the turnover. I'm not sure did he get the score from it, but they had the bit between their teeth and the momentum was going with them. And again, the beauty of sport, sometimes it's only a couple of inches between clicking and not clicking, and when things start to come off for you positively, just the bit of momentum then that comes with it and the confidence. And then sure, what happened from, if you wanted, that 63rd minute fully to the end of the injury time, just Tommy Conroy, Ryan O'Donoghue. I thought Enda Hessian was really good. I thought he brought an awful lot of pace. McLaughlin was really good as well.
Yeah. He went into the forwards, when Hessian came on. McLaughlin, that was the change they made there, which I thought was interesting. That he went into the forwards. But yeah, you're right. Ryan O'Donoghue was excellent. He had a turnover on McCarthy. He caught Davy Byrne over carrying. Yeah. 2 huge moments in that game, and he was buzzing around. He really stood up and was counted. And Tommy Conroy, like you mentioned, he got 3 points in something like 5 minutes.
Yeah. And then all of a sudden it happens, and then you're in the zone as a player, and everything comes off for you, and getting to that place is often the challenge. But I'm just thinking Ryan O'Donoghue, when we were talking about his diet a couple of months ago, of the plain chicken and pasta. So maybe he is the rest of the Mayo lads on the same diet. But
he definitely didn't tire Ryan O'Donoghue.
No.
And he went in on Merchant, and he drove the shoulder into Merchant.
Yeah.
I mean, there's some of these Mayo boys. They never gave up, even when you're looking at 10-4 and they got to 10-5. You could see the body language where they'd give each other the fist, as in everyone else thinks they're gone, but they're not thinking that at all. Aaron, after the 63rd minute, with the crowd and the emotion and Mayo growing 10 feet tall and Dublin almost shrinking, there was only nearly one winner at that stage. I was watching it going, and I've always said this on the show, you're rooting to see Mayo beat Dublin at some stage. And usually I'd think, they'll never do it. I was actually remember thinking, Jesus Christ, this is really on here. They're really going to do this here.
Yeah, I suppose you were fortunate that you were there, but even at home and watching on TV, you could sense that it was coming. And I suppose another absolutely massive moment in the second half as well was, you're speaking about him, and he's a player that I think he's just absolutely class, was Tommy Conroy. He goes at James McCarthy. This is James McCarthy we're talking about, but McCarthy standing 10 yards off him at centre half back, and Conroy just says, right, I am taking him on here, goes full belt, gets past him and gets a score at that stage. You're talking about a 21, 22-year-old lad taking on arguably one of Dublin's greatest ever players, but to have the confidence to go and do that, and I suppose to have the knowledge that this has to happen now. It was unbelievable to see him do that there, and that really lifted his game, like you say. Then the other 2 points then come straight off the back of it for him. But that was a massive moment for someone so young to have the courage to take on a player of James McCarthy, stand and deliver and put the ball over the bar, because he hadn't scored. He had one bad wide in the first half, wasn't really in the game.
No. But
he finished. He was another one of those players that finished really, really strong whenever he was needed most. Really came of age for them.
Definitely did. And you wouldn't think it was out of order if Tommy Conroy had been taken off, because he wasn't in the game at all. The game, he wasn't playing that well, and then scored those 3 points altogether. Evan Comerford had an excellent game, but he made 2 bad mistakes. Got caught for over carrying. wouldn't say that's necessarily his fault. Nobody made it easy on him.
Yeah.
They're all like, Dublin were at the stage there where they were almost scared.
Yeah.
And he got caught over carrying, and he had a bad kick out for Ryan O'Donoghue point. They were the two. Now, a lot of people would say, Jesus, Stephen Cluxton wouldn't make them. But they were his only two mistakes.
Yeah.
Now, don't tell me Cluxton hasn't made two mistakes in a game, because he has.
Now, Evan Comerford is a well capable replacement for Stephen Cluxton. Taught him in school, lovely guy, very diligent and very talented player. I thought the over carrying was a bit harsh myself, and again for me, poor refereeing with your man trying to make up for some of the mistakes he'd made. But that's just my view on it. And then the kick out was just a bad kick out, and you can see where he was trying to go from the behind the camera footage. I think it was a Fenton making a run to the Hogan stand side. He just miscued it and he hooked it in. And fairness to Mayo, the tails are up. Now, Evan, if I was chatting to him when Mayo were getting a bit of momentum, he was still taking quick kickouts. He probably, Stephen Cluxton with his wisdom, would have probably slowed it down and walked behind the goal and kicked a few balls away and took his time just to take the bit of sting out of it. But Evan was probably still quite quick. It's something I noticed on our own kickouts when we needed to actually just someone go down and just take the momentum away.
The problem is with slowing it down and taking the momentum away is the short one's not there. And then you're going to midfield, you know.
And then you're going to midfield, but I'd be very comfortable going to midfield with Brian Fenton there, because Brian cost some lovely balls, you know.
Fenton tried very hard. I wouldn't blame Fenton's Kilkenny tried his heart out.
Yeah.
Now he was making some. Con O'Callaghan did not try his heart out, as far as I'm concerned. There was one stage in the first half where Fenton caught a lovely ball in midfield, and he looked up, and Fenton is not a Scully, a Howard, all these lads who want to go sideways. Fenton is a go forward man, and with the foot, and he looked up and Con gave him nothing, and he ended up having to turn around and give it back, and he stuck his hand up in the air like this, as if to say, will you give me something? Now, I accept that some forwards, like the Gooch or Bernard Brogan, the finishers, don't often make those hard runs, but sometimes you have to.
Yeah.
And Kilkenny made those hard runs all day, but because Dublin weren't playing well, there were shite balls where it was a straight line run out towards the ball, or an obvious one.
So you just get the hand in.
No support off the shoulder. There was only one where he had support off the shoulder with Paddy Small, where he kicked a point at the start, or in the second, in the start of the water break, in the second half. It was a layoff from Kilkenny, but he had no support. Kilkenny, it's like he's winning a ball, and the attitude is, let's see what Kilkenny will do with it. There was no interplay. There was no lovely football. Dublin have completely forgotten how to play football, Ger. Like, is that outlandish for me to say they've forgotten how to kick football?
Now, I made this comment about 3 years ago. Now, Dublin won in All-Ireland still, that Dublin were the likes of Kieran Kilkenny and Niall Scully. Kieran and Niall, Niall played centre forward for Dublin 21s and was known for winning his own ball and going past fellas and playing forward. Same for Brian Howard in Dublin when you see him playing with his club. And obviously Kieran Kilkenny, but the lads were being coached to preserve and protect the ball at all costs. That instinctive nature that made them want to play Gaelic football in the first place and makes them forwards, that bit of spark was coached out of them. And Niall has gone, and Howard, they've gone all the way to the other side.
They're the two worst culprits for it now, Howard and Scully.
And Kieran was like that a couple of years ago, but he's gone back to what he's good at, what he's great at, you know. So someone needs to grab a lot of the Dublin guys by the scruff of the neck and say, we don't want you soling the ball across R45 and playing a kick pass to the left cornerback or the left, as Scully did in the first half. Like, that's like soccer type stuff, you know. Fair enough, like you described at the start, Willie, you're playing against a packed defence and you're up at the opposition's 45. Yes, you do need to move it around to the other side, try and create pockets and move the defence around. That's fine, but when you're doing that in your own 21 metre line, like, that's woeful. That's woeful stuff, and it takes the momentum and the sting out of it, and it's disappointing, to see it, like, you know. But,
2 goals, Aaron, they've scored the whole championship, and we know the one thing you fear about playing Dublin is you can't concede goals against this team. That's their oxygen. That gets the stadium behind them, and they can end up blowing you away. 2 goals all year. They had no goal chances against Mayo other than Basquel, and that should never have been a goal chance. This style of football is not helping, though. It's playing into opposition's hands. The great thing about this, Aaron, is, well, it's very hard to criticise Dublin for not changing winning football. They won 6 in a row, but they've gradually gotten worse at it.
Yeah.
Now they can change and go back and kick football. They've been beaten. This has not worked for them. And again, you'll always say, if they're playing a Kildare camping inside, okay, over and back, and they know how to do that. They're overdoing it all over the field now, Aaron, where they're taking no risks. They're not playing through a half-forward line. They're not playing kick and ball football. They've forgotten how to kick football.
Yeah, and this goes back to, like, we had a chat a couple of weeks ago where Mickey Hart was saying, like, nobody should have to win their own ball. If you're an inter-county footballer, there comes a stage where you need a man up, go 1v1 and win your own ball. There has to be a certain amount of risk. If you want to go and get goals, you want to finish teams off, you want to punish them, there's times you just need to cut loose, let the ball on. So how do you do that there? You have to have your forward structure up the field that are running that half-forward line hard. Like you say, if that's what Neil Scully was at an underage player, where he won his own ball, he was direct, he took his own man on, that's his strength as a player. Like, honestly, anybody who plays Gaelic football could do what he was doing the other day. It's not hard to run around in open space, sideways, solo and fist and going back to his. Literally anybody can do that. Not a Dublin footballer, not a footballer who's going for 7 in a row, someone who's an all-star. That's not what it's about for those guys. And to be fair, yeah, maybe they have just lost their way. Maybe they have got bored of the whole thing. Maybe the excitement of everything, it's just not there for them anymore. Yes, this loss will be a massive wake-up call for them. And anyone who's really on board and wants to turn it around and wants to get back winning, that hunger won't be too long coming back. From what we've seen from them this year, like that's a terrible stat. Like 2-3 goals they were scoring every game. Let alone, and yet we have to remember they played Wexford. They were playing Meath, they played Kildare. You would have said their first real challenge was going to come was the other day. And of all the games against Mayo, this is the first time that they haven't scored a goal against Mayo in all of these battles that we have seen in Championship football. But the reason for it is because of the style of play they're playing, how cagey they were, how much they were trying to avoid contact, avoid risky passes. You're never you need to get that ball up the field so you can get a one-on-one situation, where there's more space, where other players haven't got a chance to drop back. And like I said, just the way they've been developing and evolving over the past few years, they've created their own downfall to a certain extent.
Well, that's it. And a huge loss has been Paul Mannion. Like, I mean, and Desi wasn't playing him last year. Like, he's going to show for you. He's a good foil for Con, because Con's lazy and wants to stay. I don't want to say lazy in a bad way, but his movement is poor. He's a finisher.
He had a poor season this year.
Yeah, he did.
Standards. Yeah.
But you're losing Kilkenny off the half-forward line, who's a bit of creativity. Do you know what I mean? Like, Paddy Small's a decent offensive half-forward. Yeah. But, like, I mean, the whole structure of the forward line is not based around getting it in and running off them. Scully's all around the field, fluting around. Like, I mean, Kilkenny's inside along with Con. You have Cormac Costello running around after Paddy Durkin. He doesn't really know how to play in the half-forward line. And you have Paddy Smalls, the only one in the half-forward line that looks some bit offensive and dangerous. Like, I mean, they're not structured towards playing a good kicking game. They've gone completely to the dark side of being a horrible team to watch.
Yeah, it is hard watching them.
It's frustrating.
Because they are, again, a guy, Aaron talked about Scully there and his strength. Like, Niall made the Dublin senior team because of his strengths, which is he's a forward attacking footballer. He didn't make it, to do what he was doing the weekend. Kieran Kilkenny made it because he's a forward attacking footballer. He was fluting around a couple of seasons ago for a couple of seasons with the hand pass left and the hand pass right. So thankfully he's gotten that out of his game. So the coaching and the game plan, the offensive game plan, definitely has to change. Dublin played the weekend actually the way they played against Wexford in the first game. Just Wexford didn't have the quality. It was the same lethargy that was on show against Wexford that we seen there on Saturday evening as well. Just Mayo have better players to kind of challenge them, but it's definitely a shift does have to happen and has to happen quick. If you look at when Colin Basquel came on, fair enough, he went in for the goal chance, right? And yes, absolutely should have been stopped. But he actually went for it. Another opportunity where Colin Basquel, he ran through the middle and he took too much out of it.
Yeah.
But that's his game plan.
Yeah,
now,
but
he needs to lay it off, but there's no one coming off and then.
what he gets away with at club level because of his size and his speed.
Doesn't get away with at county.
That's not inter-county football.
No.
He's going to be found. He has been found out. That's why he can't get on the team, because he's a one-trick pony, and that works at club when you're dominating physically.
Yeah.
It's not working in inter-county. He doesn't look an inter-county player. Why is Desi not coaching him and telling him how to play?
And that's where you need to probably look at, can we get a Paul Mannion back into the squad? Like, Paul was obviously fed up and fatigued and whatnot. But we need our better players, our better forwards available for selection. Again, you can't force fellas to play, and this isn't me giving out about the Dublin management. If a guy wants to step away after winning what he's won, Jack and Paul, and bear in mind both Jack took a year off during his career to go to Africa, and Paul took a year off during his career to go to, I think, China with the course. So
the one thing about those two players there, they don't pass sideways. Jack McCaffrey doesn't go sideways. Paul Mannion doesn't go. Paul Mannion, it would break his heart to win a ball and throw it back off out to. He'd turn around, fronting up his man and going at him.
Yeah.
Jack McCaffrey doesn't go sideways. He doesn't know how to.
Yeah.
You know, they're two big players to miss.
Well, an example that Aaron described of Tommy Conroy going to James McCarthy there out in the 45. You know, that's something that Paul Mannion and the likes of Jack McCaffrey do. But the Dublin fellas that are there, Niall Scully and Brian Howard, they're more than capable of doing that, of taking a guy on or being more offensive when it's on, as opposed to running into 2 or 3 fellas, you know. But look at it, Dublin, they've come to the end of an era in some ways, with a lot of guys leaving and new management coming in. And yes, Desi won last year, which is brilliant. Desi also won minor and under 2021 All-Ireland, so he's a wonderful manager and a wonderful coach, and this is just a transition period, and you will be hoping that things will obviously change and progress in terms of how we play when we get back to the National League next year, that it is a more attacking kick passing style of football, where we are encouraging guys to go forward as opposed to the boring stuff we're seeing now.
Yeah, exactly. Do you see Desi staying? Aaron, looks like Ger sees him staying for another year. Like, I mean, there is a bit of fallout out of this. Like, I mean, you don't want to criticise him too much. He did win an All-Ireland last year, but why is Mannion not playing? Cluxton gone this year. They're playing dreadfully boring football, much more. When you think back to the Kerry game 2 years ago under Jim Gavin, the 5 in a row, like, they beat Kerry at a kicking football. And Kerry's, in my opinion, is the best footballing team in the country. You know, like, I mean, how could they have gone so downhill to this crap within 2 years of Desi's reign?
But he still won an All-Ireland.
He did win an All-Ireland. Right? No, we've said that.
And sorry for cutting across, Aaron, but to actually take on a senior management job of a team that's won 5 in a row.
Yeah,
that's been a poison challenge. So that says a lot about him too.
It was.
Just to put that out there, but anyway.
No, I agree with Jared there. Like, and I do think he'll stay on. But it probably was very difficult for him, because while he's coming in and obviously he knows them all from minor, from under 21, he was successful with them then. They're all a lot older, wiser, more experienced now, much more successful in terms of what they've done. So, you know, I'm not saying it's egos or whatever, but boys just get into their own. Once you've won what you've won, like, it is so hard then to change mindsets, to create something completely new there. So he had his work cut out. Like, everyone in the country realistically would have run a million miles away from that job, because you'd say, like, they've just done what couldn't be done before. Can you better it? No, he was never going to be able to better what had gone before him. But I do think whenever they sit back and reflect, obviously there is some wonderful footballers in Dublin. He probably needs to freshen up his panel again. But I do see him staying on. But I see him with a bit of work to do now in terms of regenerating the squad. But yes, there was distractions. Like, if you go right back to the Cluxton thing, I don't know whether it was just handled poorly in terms of the wording to come out after that Wexford game or whatever. But for me, if I sit and I look back now, it was just very disappointing for somebody. Like, if Stephen had an issue with the COVID breach, fair enough. Like, you just say it and you sort it out. Or if you're leaving, leave that it's not hanging over the whole team all year, or making your new management, realistically, let's be honest, look foolish. Yeah. You know, have a bit of respect for him or for your teammates or whatever, and just cut loose and say, right, that's it, I've retired, and put an end to it. But it dragged on. Then Eric Lowndes had left. Then Paul Mannion wasn't coming back. the other retirements, you could say, right, there were people that were always going to retire, but there was just a few bits and pieces that you never seen with Dublin, or you absolutely never seen with Jim Gavin's era, or Pat Gilroy, for that matter, beforehand. So we've just seen Dublin for 10 or 12 years now, where the team ethos has come absolutely first, and any issues have been nailed straight away. There's just an awful lot of stuff that seemed to be flying around this year, which was just very unusual for them.
Yeah, no, there definitely was. Do you have anything to say on that?
No,
Cher?
and look, and there's no smoke without fire, and we've all been in inter-county setups where your mates are telling you, I heard this fella did that, and you're like, that's absolutely crazy. But sometimes they might say something to you and you're like, yeah, there's a bit of truth in that, but you can't tell them anyway because you got to keep it tight.
Yeah.
So again, that's just another example of why Dublin are where they are at the moment. A lot of frustrations, a lot of mixed messages going out there. But the other thing that we haven't really mentioned also, well, we've touched on with Paul Mannion being gone and Jack, but the quality of guy coming through, like that, the minor team that Desi had with Paul Mannion, Jack McCaffrey, Davy Byrne,
Kilkenny, Small,
Kilkenny, like that.
John Small on that too.
That's just an
Lowndes.
incredible cohort, and I know we're not getting into funding and all that stuff with Dublin, but our Dublin minors and our Dublin 20s aren't necessarily doing as well at the moment. And I've seen these teams as well, and there's not a whole lot of guys, I would say, at the moment in our 20 setup who would be good enough to go in and push for a place on a senior team or even the top 20 that's there at the moment. So Dublin is definitely in a transition, but you can only stay on top of the mountain for so long, like, you know, that sport.
Well, they come back refreshed and rejuvenated hopefully next year with a different game plan, so we can start admiring their football again. Right, we'll leave it there, lads, and we'll come back with performance of the weekend. Okay, so performance of the weekend, they're all on the Mayo side, which isn't surprising. We'll start with Lee Keegan. I don't know, I've been very, very critical, Aaron, of James Horan's decision to play him as a cornerback because he's their inspirational leader. He has guts. He doesn't give in. The Mayo crowd love him. And yes, I know you can go forward from cornerback, and we saw him doing that probably from fullback on Saturday. But when he goes forward, he makes a difference. Now, I'd way rather see him doing it from the number 5 position and go forward maybe 3 or 4 times more often and from a further forward position. Like, why Mayo don't do that? Like, I was thinking with Harrison back now, and he'll have a month to get right for the final. You could go Hessian, Harrison and O'Hora and then stick Keegan out number 5. Like, he's so inspirational. I know he was good defensively now, but Con never moved. And he intercepted a couple of balls and he did, good defending. I don't think he's the best marking cornerback in the world. I think he's, one of the best wing backs in the game. I can't get my head around this, Aaron. What do you think?
I don't understand it either. And I only think I was playing halfback in comparison to Lee Keegan. Like, for me, he has been the best halfback I've ever seen in the game. And that's a big call, given some of the big names that have gone before him, the likes of your Tomas O'Shea's and that there. But he can do absolutely everything. He's an inspiration, driving forward, he's an inspiration. He was able to blot out some of the best players. His desire, his willingness to do whatever it takes to blot out his man and still have the hunger to get up the field and get on the end of things and make things happen, and his ability to kick big scores whenever he's been given man marking jobs is unbelievable. I don't understand what James Horan is doing, because I think he's taken away so much of what his natural strengths are in terms of putting him cornerback, fullback. I think if he's trying to keep him on board for the next few years, his reading of the game, he could maybe play fullback for another year or two to keep him on board. But for me, I love to see him on the ball out around the halfback lane, driving up the field, making things happen, getting stuck into everything that's happening around the middle third. But again, regardless of where you play him, who you ask him to mark, whenever he's really needed, he absolutely delivers every time. And just somebody, I love watching him playing football.
Who are we to tell James Horan what to do after masterminding, beating the Dubs? But this one thing that it's definitely something we've been saying, and there's nothing wrong with Lee Keegan's physical fitness. He was still going strong, to the end of extra time. So that's not an excuse. I don't know. I just love to see it. When he goes forward, he makes it happen. And I think of the way we look at Lee Keegan. Imagine what the young lads playing do. I mean, you won moments of inspiration. We mentioned his point. That got a huge cheer. You just, I don't know. I just love to see more of that.
I tell you, it's a question I would love someone to ask James Horan at the end of the season, if he's open enough to tell us why, because I think everyone who has watched Lee Keegan would love and prefer to see him play on the half-forward line and
half-back line.
At the half-back line, and as we've probably described before, like playing as a half-back being put into full-back line, it's a different sport. It's just a different game that you're playing, like, you know. Now, the fitness thing was the only thing I thought of that maybe he is preserving him. I remember Westport won the intermediate All-Ireland a few years ago, and Lee came back a bit plump, and he was struggling for his fitness for a while. But he seems to be playing the full back line ever since. But obviously Horn, maybe he's looking at the age profiles. He's looking at his middle eight. He wants more legs around there, and he's probably weighing up all those different things. But Keegan, like, he would have, was the Con last year's final. The semi-final, he got done a couple
2 years ago.
2 years ago,
yeah.
So like after that experience,
I didn't think he'd play in the full back line again after
that one. Yeah, but obviously he's put him back out there, you know.
Yeah.
So
well, the only thing I would say about that semi-final was I was at the Armagh game that year, and he picked up an awful bad ankle injury, and they patched him up. And to be fair, now Con's obviously a terrific goal scorer, but he wasn't turning that day in particular. Like, he just was flat-footed whenever Con went at him. But still, that's no excuse. Like, he just looks weird even with number 3 or number 4 on his back. Get number 5 back at him, get him out there and give us all something to enjoy.
Yeah, and Paddy Durcan's a number 7 anyways. 5 looks wrong on Durcan. I like 5. I like Durcan with a number 7.
But you mentioned with Keegan, bar the point he kicked, you could see when he was, you know, linking the ball, a transition from the defence out, he was stopping at the half, at the midway point and going back to his position. So maybe from a leadership point of view and structural point of view, maybe Horn wants him in there to keep the younger guys, to teach them,
maybe organise them, but even his goal scoring threat from half back is off the charts. He scored 3 goals against Dublin in those big games. Like, I mean, I don't know why you would want to lose that. Anyways, Rob Hennelly, flawless really, which is not kind of analysis we usually do about Rob Hennelly. No offence to him on a Monday after a big game. Kickouts were excellent. What happened? Do you know what happened with that 45 at the end, Gerard? I'll ask you. Like, the commentary got that all wrong. That was not taken again because of Philly McMahon. He was long gone at that stage.
I was watching it, and again, I had to be at home the weekend, just the way things went. I'm watching on the telly, and I was saying, Philly is nowhere near this. He's gone back inside there, like, you know. He's nowhere near it. And it was only last night, watching back to Sunday game, where they highlighted, I think, Stephen Cohen, his cousin Darren was coming on from.
There was a sub coming on.
So Mayo got the advantage for having 16 players on the pitch themselves. So it was another poor call from Conor Lane, if you ask me. That the first one was missed, and that was it. So because Mayo had their own player on the pitch, they were given an opportunity to retake it. That's based on what we seen on the Sunday game last night. The referee might have a different story.
Because the linesman was in beside him, Aaron, when he was taking that 45, and you wouldn't see that. So there was obviously a break in play for sub. I was at the game, and I remember thinking, like, the referee wasn't ready for this first one. So it happened, and the referee was like there was nothing to do with Philly McMahon. It was that there was a sub coming in and out, and the ref wasn't ready. And it looked, by the looks of things, Hennelly was a little bit overeager because there was obviously so much pressure on it, and maybe didn't want to wait that little bit longer. Because, you know, obviously it's the same. The longer you wait over something, but geez, he showed a lot of guts now. And I remember it was the league final. He had a great game against Kerry, and we all went, you know, that's finally redemption for Hennelly after the few mistakes. Well, there's 2 big redemption games now, Aaron, so I think we're past redemption for Hennelly at this stage.
Yeah, like, you have to be delighted for him, you know, because for someone to put themselves out there as often, and the one thing about goalkeeper is, you know, there's no respite for you. Like, if you make a mistake, it tends to be costly, and everyone jumps on your case, you know. So to have the resilience to come back, and you know, he was to and fro between himself and David Clark as well for the majority of his career. But yeah, you couldn't but be happy for him. And for him to be able to deliver in those clutch moments was absolutely superb. Keep a clean sheet again, absolutely massive, albeit that, you know, he didn't have a whole pile to do with that regard. But a great day out for him, and he'll be going into an All-Ireland now full of confidence and looking forward.
And just what Aaron touched on there, when Clark and Henley were kind of interchanging on and off over the 10 years or so. The fact that Clark is gone, retired, and Henley is now the main man.
He's more secure.
You're more secure, and the bit of confidence that comes from that then as well. Because his kickouts were immaculate. They were landing right on the sideline. Like they were, and it's not often you don't see Dublin not turn over an opposition kickout, which, you know, nearly 50-60% of opposition kickouts. That's what Dublin used to be up to, but I think Mayo won 90%.
90% he executed. 91% it said that he executed. You know, and against Dublin, a team who know what you're going to do or are well planned for it, like that's unbelievable.
Yeah.
And then, like I said, you throw in what he did from the dead ball and the distance that he's not kicking 30-meter frees here. You know, some of them were 50 meters out. So absolutely brilliant for him. Delighted for him.
He was putting a lot to the left half back position there under the Hogan stand. A lot of them. He was even hooking some of them out there. Other two, Tommy Conroy, like we mentioned, that really came into it at a vital stage. I thought James McCarthy let him in very softly. That's another thing. James McCarthy didn't play well at all that time. There's no way he usually would let a lad inside him like that. Ryan O'Donoghue got 5. 2 from playing a mark. The mark was very important at the time. Drove his shoulder into Merchant. He's a bit about him. Ryan O'Donoghue's winning me over. I wasn't sure if he was a top level forward, but I'm starting to think that he probably is. Definitely up there. He's got great heart. That's one thing I really like about him, and he'd have loads of confidence. They're the short list. Pádraig O'Hora, though, I suppose he's kind of introduced himself onto the national stage. A warrior. Strong. We know he's got is it army background, or did he did some RTE show or whatever he did? Like,
boys, did you not see? Have you seen Ultimate Hell Week?
Yeah,
I didn't see
corner
it.
forward gone in. The man's insane. Absolutely, the stuff that he put himself through to win that TV show was mental.
Oh, he won that TV show.
You wouldn't entertain it for an evening, what he put himself through for that full week. So, and do you see the interview after the game? And I know you'd spoken on the show a few times about the confidence or the way he speaks. Like, there's no bullshit out of him whatsoever. There's no talking, there's no PR lanes or anything with him. He just literally says exactly what he's thinking. Like, and for him to come out and be so honest after it and say what he said, like, we have one plan and we're sticking to it.
Yeah,
you know,
I like that one.
He means business, but his age, even if you're looking at him doing that there interview, you're thinking, this man's not wise. Like, you know, there's nothing going to put him off his game. But yeah, very, very, like, wholehearted player, like, unbelievable, but just really, really focused as well. And what a performance, what a year he's having for them also.
Yeah, he's real. He's definitely real. And I loved his interview. Look at this place, what it means to all of us. I can't even describe it. Unbelievable. It's the best day of my life. Like, you know, I don't know what it means to all of us. I love the way he said that, because he was including the crowd in that.
Yeah.
And I just thought that was just an incredible, like, he's not just saying, what it means to the group. You know, this old bullshit.
Yeah.
What it means to all of us in the stadium as the crowd's going mad. And I was just like, oh my God, I don't know. There was just something incredible about the way he spoke, even though the place was so loud. But he's a hardy bit of stuff. Now, those straight line runs, any corner backward to solved is getting up behind that. You know, Kilkenny got out in front of me. He held Kilkenny up, which is a very, very difficult thing to do, because Kilkenny's like a bull, and if he turns around to go at you, but Dublin forwards tend not to take their men on anymore. You know, he did brilliantly well on Comer. You know, a huge test now if they end up playing Kerry. Like, that's the ultimate test for Keegan and O'Hora and these fellas.
No, definitely. Like, Mayo actually were you could see that they were kind of protecting the goal a bit. They didn't want to leave themselves open for most of the game until probably the very end, when they had to push on a bit and they were chasing it. But I would certainly see Kerry probably taking Tyrone, no disrespect to Tyrone, when they play in 2 weeks' time. And I think the Kerry forward unit, the way they're moving, they have definitely been the best unit that we've seen between the league and the championship so far, and it'll pose just a different challenge. But again, the type of character he is, from what he did with the Army show, and again the way he played and the way he spoke, he just taken his stride.
Yeah, he's 27, like, he's mature. You know, this, you know, and he's been around the panel a couple of years.
Well, see, as a back and as a keeper, and again, Aaron talked about when a keeper makes a mistake, it's amplified because of how close he is to the goal. Same for a fullback. But as a fullback and a cornerback, sometimes you got to say to the lads, look, you're going to win some, you're going to lose some. But, you know, if you lose some, don't let them get in for a goal. If he kicks a point, fair play to him, obviously put him under pressure. But, you know, if you break 50-50 or 60-40 against a decent forward, well, that's good enough. Like, you know, we'll get our half back line in to support you. And that's what probably Horn will be saying to the likes of him, whoever he's marking, whether it's a Tyrone player or a Kerry man, in 4 weeks' time, and just keep doing what he's doing, like, you know. But it'll be a different challenge. But I don't think we won't get too much of a change out of the Kerry, the Mayo full back line or their backs in terms of how they played. Oisin Mullen will probably slot back in then with McLaughlin due to miss out, unfortunately.
Yeah.
You know, so
Yeah, that'll be it. Or Hesse might come back in as well. But we'll wait and see. Anyways, I think the performance of the weekend has to go to Lee Keegan. As I say, we'll all agree on that. O'Hora got man of the match on RT. Sky gave it to Lee Keegan. I watched the match back. I didn't think there was any player close to Keegan on the field that day. So, like, I mean, arguably the greatest wing back that has ever played the game, playing in cornerback. So we'll leave it there. Congratulations, Lee Keegan. Come on, James Horan. Let's release that man. We'll be back on Thursday and we'll talk to you all then. Good luck.